Welcome back to the Jeff Crilley Show. I'm very excited about this. This is the first for the Jeff Crilley Show. I have never had a judge in the studio, and Judge Brandon Birmingham is in studio. He is the district court judge for Dallas County. It's the 292nd District Court. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very proud to be here, very excited to be here. When you first saw me today, you said, I wish I would have told you we were going to be filming, but hey, this is me. This is my hoodie with my little logo on it, and so this is the Weekend Brandon Birmingham. So
I love it, and I've gone on to look at some of your videos, and you really, I think you demystify the system, and showing up in a hoodie is really part of your persona. That people do put judges up on a pedestal, but a judge is one of the responsibilities of being a judge, I think, is to explain to the public how things work.
Yes, I do. I think one of the things we're seeing these days is that there's a lot of consternation. There's lots of conflict in our society. Sometimes those conflicts see the inside of a courtroom, and then I hear about those conflicts, and I hear a lot of misinformation, a lot of misguided information from the public. And so what I wanted to do was, at least for my court, for the people who are interested, could listen to the way that the things work in my court, the way the law applies to people, things that are important, where we are as a society and where we're headed within our criminal justice system.
Well, you have videos called Fridays in the Chambers.
Yes.
How did you start that?
I had a very good friend of mine mentioned that, when I first started running, that social media, this was a couple years ago, social media was coming up, and we should do these fireside chats like the president used to do, and there should be something like that. And so I thought, why not just have it on there? I can't talk about any specific cases, and some of the other judges and other lawyers thought I was crazy for doing it. But I mean, I can teach, I can explain, I can give the people an avenue to talk to me. And it occurred to me that if we can go out on the campaign trail and say certain things, then we certainly should be able to say it at any time. So it just kind of went from there.
Well, and I was on your website, and it talks about some of your accomplishments. The AIM program. Tell me about that.
Well, I'll just ask you if you've ever done anything between the ages of 18 and 24 that you regret, and I know that I have. And,
absolutely.
Fortunately for me, and I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at right now if that was permanent, if some of the things that I did were permanent, went on my permanent record, but they didn't. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to sort of start this program, begin this program, and basically for 18 to 24-year-olds, and we're going to expand it to 17-year-olds in the coming months, but 18 to 24-year-old nonviolent offenders. So somebody breaks into a school, or somebody has a little small amount of drugs or marijuana or something like that. If they do the program, remain drug-free, complete a life skills course, continue their education if they're in education, continue working if that's what they're doing, then they can graduate. And the unique thing about this program is their cases are dismissed even though they're indicted. But what's really unique about it is that they are then immediately expunged. So they don't have to say that they've ever been convicted, because they haven't. They're not placed on probation. They've never entered a plea of guilty. They basically have repaid their debt to society, and they can then move on, not being tethered to this conviction that might have lifelong consequences for them. And it's been a raging success. We started out with a handful of people. We've graduated about 25 now.
Wow.
We've got about 55 in the program, and we're looking to expand that. I'm also looking to take that to contiguous counties and see if they're interested in it, because it's a really good program, and it's been accepted by everybody I've told about it on both sides of the aisle.
That's really cool. Do you get to know any of the young people?
I sure do. Yeah, and I've noticed a couple things about them. Number one is that a lot of them don't have father figures or mentors in their lives. I've noticed that they are still reachable even at 18 to 24-year-old. They're not lost. They're not so entrenched in the system that they're not beyond redemption. I've noticed that they just need to know that there's nothing special about successful people. I mean, I think they might look at somebody like me, or maybe some of the lawyers that are involved in the program, and think, well, they've done something special, or they were anointed special back then. But we've all overcome our adversities. We all come from different walks of life, and they see that. So it's really modeling and mentorship that has been the most rewarding part of it.
How do you balance kind of the being tough on crime and being compassionate? Because it seems like there's always kind of a balance, isn't there?
There is, and those are some of the tough decisions that I have to make as a judge, is what are the punishments, I think you have to look at a whole host of things. You have to, first of all, give everybody a fair chance to be heard, a fair opportunity to be heard, regardless of the type of crime. Felony court that I'm in, it's everything from simple possession all the way up to capital murder, some of the worst, but everybody deserves to be heard. You have to treat the person, you have to look at the person, the individual human being, as opposed to a class of cases and say that all of these classes of cases deserve this amount of time. You have to look at the individual circumstances. I draw a lot too on my experience. I tried probably, 200 jury trials when I was a prosecutor, 45 homicide cases, and talking to jurors about what's important to them, that certainly has shaped it as well. And you have to look at the long-term solutions. What really are we accomplishing and what can we accomplish by a decision that's made today? How is that going to impact tomorrow for both sides?
Who are some of your mentors? I imagine as a prosecutor you had a chance to observe judges. Were there any judges that really you're modeling in a way?
There was a number of judges along the way that I learned from. I really enjoyed being in their court. There's, a number of them, I like the way that they treated the lawyers. I like the way that they heard everybody. They were respectful for everybody. I've also been in courts where I've been dressed down as the lawyer, and that was awful. It felt awful. It didn't accomplish anything. So I've really, really tried to be respectful, patient, those types of qualities I've seen along the way. There's been innovative judges, trailblazing judges that have sort of taken what it means to be a judge and expanded that, and I really appreciate that. So I think it's kind of like blues music. I don't know if you play, the blues or anything like that, but you sort of learn the sort of some of the riffs, but you make it your own. And I've stolen a number of things from a lot of judges to sort of create my own, woven from a tapestry of many that have come before me.
Hollywood can take some liberties when it comes to characterizing the judicial system. What's your favorite movie that actually gets it right? That you're like, that's a real courtroom experience. My Cousin Vinny.
There's some really good scenes in My Cousin Vinny.
Okay.
I've always wanted to be like Judge Haller too. That guy was great, and he was funny. But there's that. One movie I think that gets it right, is pretty close to being right as far as the trial goes, is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. That's always one of my favorites. I think that, if you said, well, why did you want to become a lawyer and all that? I was in, 10th grade or something when I saw A Few Good Men, and I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know what a prosecutor was, but I thought that was a really cool movie. So there's that. I mean, then you have some other ones like, Legally Blonde, that, is famous and people have it, but I mean, it's not anything real.
But do you believe that the theater of Hollywood influences jurors, that jurors are kind of waiting for, this closing argument that they're used to seeing,
Yes.
In the theaters?
There are two things. Number one, these reality TV show, CSI and all of those.
Right.
They have completely changed the way that lawyers handle their cases. The news has changed as well. Probably better than anybody, but I mean, the way the news is done now is different than it was done 25 years ago. Jurors want different types of mediums. They want pictures. They want videos. You tell a story as a trial lawyer in a persuasive way, which is just storytelling. So I know that I watch news, I listen to stand-up comedians, I listen to good preachers, and all of that has the commonality of the way that people intake information. And certainly with technology and the increase of technology, our attention span has gotten a lot shorter, and lawyers have to be very mindful of that.
How do you I'm as not a lawyer, but I watch NFL games, and I see sometimes the refs are just calling everything, and sometimes they're not calling anything.
Yeah.
As you approach your job, I mean, there's got to be cases where everybody's objecting all the time.
Right.
What's your philosophy about when to sit back and when to?
I think if there's obvious, lawful violations, then I have to call it like I see it. However, I will say that if it's in my discretion, I do everything I can to let the lawyers get their side of the story out from both sides. I really do. I want these lawyers have a better understanding of the facts, because I don't know the facts going into it. And so I want them to be able to, number one, feel relaxed. Number two, be able to get out everything that they can, because I don't want it to ever be that justice was denied because the lawyer got nervous or because the judge was putting a clamp on everybody. So I tend to let more evidence in than probably most if it's up to my discretion. I want to let the lawyers try their case and get out of the way. So, in NFL, they talk about playoff football, well, that's going on right now. Let them play. Well, I let them play as much as I possibly can.
How mindful are you that, everything you do could be second guessed on appeals? I mean, does that weigh on you at all or not really?
I know that some judges have put out that I've never been reversed before, but you know what? If you're in trial enough, you're making these decisions. They say that the appellate courts are like snipers and the trial judges are basically shooting from the hip. We don't have time to do research. I certainly don't have any legal clerks, to go do a bunch of research for me. So I don't really care. I do things as best I can with the information that I have at the time, and if I make a mistake, I learn from it. I get the opinions of people who read my, the courts that review my cases, and I read all of them because I want to know if I'm messing up, and if I am, then I try to fix it. A mistake is forgivable, but the same mistake twice is probably not forgivable.
Cameras in the courtroom. Good idea, bad idea? Do attorneys end up playing to the camera and not really practicing law?
Let me tell you a secret, okay? Yeah. Attorneys play to everybody all the time, okay? So I don't know if you know that or not, your listeners out there. But I do allow cameras in the courtroom. I firmly believe that it is a public courtroom. Anybody is always welcome to come to my courtroom. Cameras are no exception, as long as they don't film the jurors and as long as the witnesses, if they don't want to be filmed, always have the opportunity to say, I don't want to be filmed, and that is their trump card. And if they say that, the cameras are out, period. And that's the rules that I operate under.
That's wonderful. If people want to find out more about you, how do they engage with you? Facebook or?
Yes, I've got a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, a YouTube channel. It's all at Judge Birmingham. You can email me any questions at brandon.birmingham@dallascounty.org. Or you can just come to the 292nd. We're in the Frank Crowley Courts building any day between 8 and 4:30. I'll be on the bench. Just come up and say hi. It is a public courtroom.
That's really cool.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I hope you'll come back again.
I would love to. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Coming up next, she's a sales guru who's out to change the world one close at a time. We'll learn from one of the best in the biz just ahead on The Jeff Crilley Show.